Hello, everyone. I hope everything works here. Ska vi se. My name is Natalia Murashova, and I'm a PhD stipendiat in Högskolan i Östfold. I started almost 2 years ago, and to be honest, our project name and my paper name is so long that I decided to shorten it to how can Norwegian organizations adopt ethical AI solutions in their practice, because that's what we're actually doing, and that's what I would like to share with you today. I'm coming from a quite interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary background, so I've been working a lot with responsible innovation in NTNU, co-creation and participatory techniques, stakeholder engagement, and now I'm recently becoming an expert in AI ethics. And I'm exploring how this methodology can be developed, what is the process, and basically, how to do it in the Norwegian context. I wanted to start with this funny old poster about the technology and what promises it holds. I think it's funny to see how many decades ago we were looking at it and thinking, oh, that's going to be the future. Technology is going to make us all happier, better, faster. And it was really romanticized. But what do we actually see in practice? What's actually happening when a big-scale technology enters public sector, enters schools, enters our politics? I think there are a lot of things that are very disturbing, and I think we should talk about this and we should pay more attention to these things that are happening. Aristotle says that there is a recipe for good life, and it's self-development through studying, through developing thoughts into intellect, and then building this character. But what is this character, and what is this ethical character is? Since we see such a large shift in how we learn and how we perceive information these days, it changed so much. So where all these processes are happening and what's happening to them in nowadays, that's a really big question, and especially in AI realm. So in order to be a bit more simplistic, a lot of academics and public and private sector agreed upon some principles to lead and guide ethical AI practice. It's gone. They are based on 4 bioethical principles. That's autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. And in order to kind of adopt it to AI dimension, they added explainability, which is talks about transparency and how AI system is built and what kind of outputs it gives and why. I'm trying to get the slides back. So these principles are extremely romantic, and they are very structured. They are working for some people, but unfortunately, thanks. They've been embedded in multiple codes of conduct, guidelines on a very different level, starting with the governmental level and then going into professional kind of group level and even on the organizational level. I think this on the bottom is from Microsoft. So it all sounds really nice and beautiful, and everyone has it on their websites telling how ethical they are. But actually, actual studies with engineers, people who work with developing, designing, and deploying AI systems, it shows that these principles do not work in practice, and they actually has 0 impact on ethical decision-making. And the engineers admitted themselves. Also, one of the other big problems is that, as you can see on this map, most of these ethical guidelines are coming from these countries that are in red. So that means that the narrative is completely biased toward one cultural cluster, and the rest of the countries who are trying also to be on top of the game with AI ethical guidelines implementations, they have to adopt these ethic principles from other countries and very different cultural contexts. So this is a very large issue in my perspective. In addition, when we go down on the more organizational level, there are so many challenges that's professional competence gaps. People don't know what's ethic, what is it, why is it important for me? There is a huge different sectoral traditions where we compare doctors who have a very well-established ethical guidelines and ethical norms compared to people, for example, working in logistics sector. What is ethics for Boston, for example? It's very diverse. In addition, the rapidly developing AI systems, they don't let us to catch up with all these changes and adopt our strategies towards all these big advances. And as you can see, lack of participatory engagement mechanisms. Some organizational structures have very silos-based decision-making systems, which is making it complicated to involve different stakeholder perspectives when we talk about ethics. And as I said before, ethics is about how do we live a good life, and I think it has to be collectively agreed how we do that. So many of the studies try to figure out how can ethical risks be assessed in practice, and it's been done with open-ended questionnaires, data-driven, and the relational approach. So as you can see, it's still going back to this checklist approach, which might work for some, but I do not think that it actually works in practice. So what we suggest in ENACT and what we've been doing in the last 2 years is that we are suggesting a very process-oriented approach. Process that develops this like ethical virtue, like how do we approach ethical AI, how do we make it happen in our organization, and how do we move further. So we base our methodology that we're collaboratively developing on CURAS. It's a model-based method for security risk analysis, and it's been mainly it was developed for defense and risk security purposes, so it's quite complex. So let me show you an example. How does it look? I think it's a bit scary. It's a lot of things, a big diagram, even though it's really visual, and you probably can see how the analysis goes, but I think it looks very big and a bit complex. So after a round of discussing and working all together with all the partners in ENACT, we came up with a bit of a different strategy. So first, we've been trying to elicit the needs of the organization through multiple interviews, surveys, also collaborative workshops. Then together with researchers, we developed the first first version of the methodology that I'm going to share with you today. And then we've been this process been repeated multiple times. And that's what we've basically been doing in the last 2 years all together, which was very exciting, very challenging, but also I feel very rewarding because we all learned a lot. So we simplified the 7 steps of CURAS, and I hope it comes up. And we limited it to 3 main steps, which is represented in the form of a workshop. And these workshops are specially made for those who work with AI solutions, who design them, who interact with them at work. And we suggest, of course, a limited amount of participants and be a bit more precise what use case people will use for this risk assessment. And there are many practical guidelines that we also give when we're introducing this into organization. But I would like to start with the first workshop. In the first workshop, we focus on 4 base things that we need to identify. And it's values, actors, benefits and disadvantages, and evaluation criteria. Why this is important? Because it's setting up the context for evaluation. And what we figure out that values, it's extremely important, especially when people work in different sectors. It is extremely important to understand what is value for us as employees, what is value for us as project owners, developers, and what do we want to continue protecting in our organization when new things are coming into this, interactive landscape, when employees are interacting with technology. Another important part, these are actors, these are people who are affected, who are involved, and very often we don't have time to think about this broad perspective of who are impacted by me copy-pasting some email from my colleague into ChatGPT and asking to write the answer. Is there any private information that's in this email and it's going to get out there? Is there anything else? So it's extremely important to focus on actors. I think one of the distinctions of this methodology is that we're not only focusing on disadvantages of the solution, we also focus on benefits. So it's we try to balance this out because we're absolutely aware that AI technology is beneficial and it's impossible to stop it, so we have to be adaptive. So that's why we need to identify what are the plus and minuses this solution brings into our team, into our work environment, and discuss that. And at the end, we try to set the criteria for the group that's at the workshop to understand what is acceptable for us, what kind of risk we as organization, as an individual, are ready to take when we embedding this AI solution or we designing it or deploying it. At the workshop number 2, same group, preferably same participants, we're sitting down at the table and we're trying to come up with as many scenarios as possible. How this solution can make our values weaker, can empower us, can impact the actors. So it's a really creative and a very brainstorming session where people get to think and share their ideas, their fears, and maybe their hopes. Which is extremely beneficial, and then we analyze what are those for us as an organization, and then we have a little evaluation of the results. So at the last workshop, the group will have more broader picture of what are ethical risks or dilemmas that are in place, how they're connected with each other, what actors are affected, and then it's time to talk about, okay, what can we do with it in our organization? What my little department how we can tackle it? Do we have resources? Do we have access to solutions that can prevent risks happening and also encourage the benefits that this AI solution brings? So that was a really short description of these 3 workshops. But the paper that we published altogether, we focused on the first stage of developing this methodology, which was done in cross-sectoral setting. So that means all the sectors been participating. It was people from medical sector, finance, logistics. So it was not sector-based. So that's why we realized that in the cross-sectoral settings of evaluation, this risks, we need extremely narrow context analysis. So it has to be an exact same case that's present in all organizations. So people need to know why this AI solution is being used. They are aware that it exists. So that was some of the lessons that we learned. In addition, it was really difficult to cross these boundaries in between the sectors because some of the participants could not relate to experiences of the other sectors, and it was completely foreign for them. But on the other hand, this cross-sectoral perspective gave so much inspiration and so much encouragement to those who participated because people were able to see that these are issues everywhere and every sector has the struggles and some of the risks are extremely similar. So it was also really nice to have this cross-sectoral interaction there. Also, when we tested it, we did it in a digital format, which I would say worked okay, but of course, preferably, this would be great to have all these workshops physically, when people are present, people are engaged. Yes, and we did some of the more, I would say, structural adjustments, but I don't want to go too deep into the detail. You can always come and talk to me after, and I would gladly talk to you about my paper. But what else is, what we decided to do after this trial, when we went into the pilot section, or like pilot work package that Benjamin's gonna tell you more about, we decided that we need to work on the sectoral tradition and figure out what sector has in their tradition and what is typical for them, what is atypical. We need to work with group dynamics, which is extremely important because the people who join workshops can be of a different level, and they can be a head of a project sitting with an employee, and will this employee able to express all the fears and doubts, or will the employee hold it back? There are a lot of power play that's happening within these workshops, and since it's such a sensitive topic, ethics, this can be a lot of extreme, I would say, challenges connected to that. One of other challenges that we also tackle in the pilots is the confidential information that some organizations weren't able to share due to the privacy reasons in the cross-sectoral settings, but when we go into organization or into specific project, people are more openly sharing their concerns, sharing their experiences. Yeah, and then also format of the workshop, since it was 3 different workshops, circa 1 hour length of each, I think we will work forward to making it more compact, more accessible, and more reachable to everyone in our organization, rather than a selective group of people that you choose. You choose to invite. I think that these are the references. I also would like to thank my co-authors that were amazing and really fantastic in helping me, guiding me, and this was basically the work group for the first version of the methodology. They did an amazing job, and I think I will say thank you very much from me. Please come and talk to me if you have any questions, and I will be happy to answer some of them now, since we have quite some time. Thank you.